Alright, in this video I'm going to be going over the beginning phase of your number 6 eLearning Wood Table Design Challenge project, and we're going to go into the Fusion portion. So just to go ahead and get started, this project is going to be worth 35 points. It's going to be due by Friday by 3 p.m. and if you do end up turning it in late for some reason, please make sure you send me an email to grade it. If you don't, I will not grade it, and it'll be marked as incomplete in the grade book. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this general table design. It's an end table, and just to kind of give you an idea of layout how we're going to go through this project, we're going to jump right into Fusion. Then you're going to go ahead and do some brainstorming. And then you are going to go back into Fusion on your own and create a custom design and do a drawing for it, which will be turned in at the end. So that's kind of a little overview of the entire project. But we need to start off with the original design, so let's go ahead and we're going to model this in Fusion. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make a new project and name it Wooden Table Design Challenge. And we're going to change our measurement system to inches. So I'm going to go ahead and expand my data panel. I'm going to go back and click on the home button, and I'm going to make a new project. And we're going to call it Wooden Table Design Challenge. Now I already have one, so I'm actually not going to do this. So go ahead and do that though. And then it'll probably go all the way down to the bottom here. And I want you to click the little pin on it, and what that'll do is it'll pin it at the top of your list. And then go ahead and double click into that folder. Now yours is going to be empty. Mine currently already has a finished product in it, and that's what you're trying to get to right now. So we got our folder system set up. Let's go ahead and collapse our data panel. And I need to do a file new. You should already have a blank new design template on your screen. And the first thing I want you to make sure of is your units. Your units are located under your document settings, and if you click on the change active units, if it's in millimeters, please go ahead and switch to inches. So change your units by clicking the little edit button to inches. And then we're going to go ahead and save this file as original wooden table in that new folder we just made. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. We're going to call it original wooden, original wooden table. Now I'm going to add a number 2 at the end of mine because I'm actually doing this for a second time. But just call yours original wooden table and make sure that the location is going into that folder that we just made. If it's not, click the drop down arrow, look in your project list over here, locate it, and say OK, and hit save. So now we have that original wooden table saved, and we can go ahead and get started. So I'm just checking my notes here. It looks like I'm going to have you follow this video that you're currently watching. Alright. So let's go ahead and get started. And the first place we're going to start is in the front view. So if you take a look at this original profile, we need to create this profile right here. We're actually going to end up using a sweep tool, which you've probably seen before with me on previous projects. It might not have been in the same CAD software, but you should know what the sweep tool is. We're going to use that though. So let's go ahead and do a new sketch. And actually, you know what? No, we're going to start with a new component. So if I go under Assemble, I'm going to do a new component. And we're just going to call this the we'll go wooden end table. Because that's what we're making. Wooden end table, and then say OK. So now if you notice in the browser, we're currently working on that component. So I'm going to go ahead and do a create sketch, and we're going to go on the front plane. Now from that front plane, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to press L on the keyboard for my line tool. And I'm going to always start at the origin, so I'm going to left click there. I'm going to go up into the left, and I'm going to go 19.875. What's going on here? Where's that dimension? There. Whoops, I hit escape on accident. So line tool, left click the origin, 19.875, and then I'm going to press tab on the keyboard, and our degrees is going to be 105. Whoops, not 1.5, 105. I'm going to left click with my mouse, zoom out, and then from that point I'm going to go directly to the left. Now make sure you see that horizontal constraint. We want this going perfectly horizontal, and our length for this is going to be 16.929. And I'm going to left click, and then now I'm going to go down on an angle, and for my length I'm going to type in the 19. Ooh, I noticed that I messed up this dimension. We're going to change that in a second. That should have been 19.685. So I'm going to go 19.685. I'm going to press tab to switch to my degrees. I'm going to go 105 again, and I'm going to hit enter. Now, I need to go back into this dimension because this is wrong. I'm going to double click on that. That should be 19.685. There we go. And then I'm going to go back into the line tool, start back at this endpoint where we just finished. I'm going to go straight over to the left. Notice the horizontal constraint, and that's going to be 4.331. Enter on the keyboard. Back into the line tool. Notice if you hit enter, it gets you out of the line tool, but if you left clicked with the mouse, it won't get you out of the line tool. And then for our last line, I'm going to go up, and this is going to be 15.748. Tab on the keyboard, degrees is going to be 105. Alright, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lines. I'm going to hit escape on the keyboard just to make sure I'm not in any tools. Then I'm going to just kind of pull these dimensions out of the way because they're kind of getting a little bit claustrophobic. So I'm just going to start grabbing these and kind of pulling them off and just kind of moving stuff out of my design so the lines are a little bit easier to see. Just kind of pulling this stuff in. Maybe pull this out. Okay. So again, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lines. Now, the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is add some fillets. So I'm going to use the fillet tool right within the sketch geometry, or the sketch. Normally, I don't like to do fillets in the sketch. I'd rather do them after I've done the extrusion. But for this specific model, I found that doing the fillets in the sketch makes my life a little bit easier later on. And sometimes you just got to find that out by trial and error. But I'm going to help you out. We're going to do the fillets in the sketch. I'm going to click on fillet. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a fillet to this corner, this corner, this corner, and this corner. So let's go ahead and now you can click the point or you can click the line and then the line. I'm going to just click on this point right here. Notice when I hover over it, it gives me the preview. So I'm going to left click. And now it wants a radius. The radius we're going to go 2. I'm going to do the same thing over here. The same thing here. And is it letting me get that one? I'm going to just hit enter on the keyboard. This last one didn't seem to want to let me do it, so I'm going to go back into fillet. And I guess it's still doing it. Well, let me click that point for some reason. Alright, I'm going to click the line, and then the other line, and then put my fillet radius as 2. Enter on the keyboard. So now I got all my fillets in place. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch. Hit that home button. So if you look at the solid geometry, the solid black lines, what we just did there was we created the profile of our actual end table. So the next thing I need to do is create a profile to sweep along that path. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do next. And that profile needs to either start at this point or this point, because this is the actual path that the sweep is going to follow. So I'm going to start it on this point, but you got to ask yourself, which plane do I want to create that sketch on? So we're going to create that sketch actually on the top plane. And then you got to ask yourself, what type of shape do I want to trace this path to create my 3D table? And that answer is a rectangle. So we're going to do a sketch on the top plane and we're going to create a rectangle. So I'm going to go create 2D sketch. I'm going to click on my top plane. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rotate. Now this origin point, if you remember, was where we started our original path that we're going to sweep. Remember that? That's where we started. So I'm going to just go ahead and go to rectangle, or you can press R on the keyboard. Off here in space, I'm going to just left click once. I'm going to draw a rectangle. This rectangle we're going to do for the length, we're going to do 19.685. I'm going to press tab on the keyboard to do the height, and for that I'm going to do 0.709. I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard. So I got my rectangle. Just pull this dimension out so you can see it a little bit easier. Now what we need to do is constrain this rectangle to the origin. Now we specifically want the center of the rectangle constrained to that origin. So I'm going to go ahead and use a midpoint constraint, and I'm going to do the midpoint of this line. So I'm going to left click that, then I'm going to left click the origin. As soon as I do that, it constrains the middle of the rectangle, that bottom edge, to the origin. So now I can go ahead and hit finish sketch, and if I hit the home button, you can kind of see what we just did. So now this rectangle is going to follow this path to create our the body of our table. So the next thing we're going to do is use a sweep tool, which I believe is under the create panel here. And it's right there. So you notice in this example they're sweeping a circle along that spline to create kind of that tube looking shape. So we're going to go ahead and go to sweep, and when this box pops up, let's work from the top down. We're going to do a single path. Okay, it's just one path. Right now I want you to select your profile, and then I want you to select your path. So our profile is this rectangle here. Then I'm going to go switch to path, so I'm going to click on that, and our path is going to be that 2D line that we drew in the front plane. If we had a taper or some other things, we would change all that, but otherwise it looks good. And I can go ahead and click OK. The other thing I've been forgetting to do is some version saves. So I'm going to click save and just say OK. So it just saved a version of that in my data panel. If you go over here and you look, you'll notice here it says for the table I'm currently working on, there's 2 versions. If I expand that, you'll notice that it started off with the original on this. So get in the habit of saving right here, because then if you make a mistake, you can just go back to one of those versions. Now the other thing I want to add in is this kind of handle portion. And at the end of this, we'll kind of talk about the design and maybe some good elements to this design before you go into brainstorming. But let's add in this slot. So I'm going to go ahead and do a new sketch. I'm going to orbit around, and I'm going to click on this face right here, the model. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to create, and I'm going to use a slot. Now I'm going to use a center point slot. And one of the things that I want to make sure of is that when I start this slot, I'm starting on this Y or I'm sorry, z-axis. So just make sure that you're snapping somewhere on this z-axis, and also make sure that you're not snapping to a midpoint. You don't want that. Just somewhere along this x-axis. You don't want that triangle though. So I'm going to go about right here, right on the x-axis. Now I'm going to move my mouse to the left, and what this is doing is it's from the center of the slot to the center of the circle. And that distance, we're going to do 2.75, and then enter on the keyboard. Whoop, why isn't it working? Hold on one second, that didn't work. I'm going to hit escape. Create slot, center point slot, click somewhere on the y-axis, go over to the left. What did I say? 2.75, enter, and then I need to left click, I believe. What happened? I'm going to try this again. One more time. Click somewhere. I don't know what just happened. Start 2D sketch. This face. Create slot. Center point slot. Click somewhere on the y-axis here. Okay. Then I'm going to go 2.75. Enter. Good. Then I'm going to move my mouse. Notice what this is doing is it's determining the diameter of that circle or the height of the slot. And for this we're going to do 2. I'm going to hit enter. And then now I got my slot there. The other thing I want to do is a location dimension. I know it's centered in this because I started on the z-axis, but I want to get the dimension from here to here. So I'm going to go ahead and go dimension, and I'm going to do from this edge to here. And what's it doing here? Dimension from there to there. I'm going to do about 4 inches. And I think that looks a little bit too low. I'm going to go like, let's try to cut that in half. Let's do 2 inches, see how that looks. Yeah, I like 2 inches, a lot better. Just think about that you're trying to grab that, how far down you want it. I think 2 inch, maybe, I might change it to 2.5. Let's go 2.5. Alright, so I moved the slot down 2.5 inches. I'm going to finish the sketch. Now I'm going to do an extrude. I'm going to orbit around and grab that slot. For some reason I got to click both of those. I'm going to change the direction to go the other way. I'm going to orbit a little bit. And then for the extents, I'm going to say to object. And I'm going to click on this face. So then what it did, it just does a cut from here to here. So that way if I ever change the thickness of this, it'll always cut through the entire thickness of the object by changing it to object. And make sure that this is set to cut. It should automatically did that when you change the direction. But now we should be good. I can do the cutout. I'm going to hit the home. For modify, let's go to physical material. And we're going to do a wood, I believe. Let's do wood. Let me move this a little bit. And thought they had a bamboo in here. I thought that was one I used. I'm just going to use a regular wood. Where did that go? It's down on the bottom. I'm just going to do wood. I'm going to drag that on. And then I'm going to close that, and then I'm going to hit A on the keyboard for appearance. And this time I'm going to search wood in the library, and I specifically want to use this bamboo. So for the actual material, the physical properties of it, we set it to just a regular wood. But then the actual appearance, so like imagine like this thing is wrapped in like a different color, we're going to use this bamboo. So that's the difference between appearance and actual material. Alright, so then I can go ahead and close that. And let's go ahead and do a save. And let's talk about the functionality of this. So, before I'm only going to talk about a few things, and then we'll talk about your brainstorming. So an end table, and actually this pairs well with the brainstorming, so let's go to that. So in the brainstorming, the first thing you're going to want to do is insert 2 cool pictures of a different end table design that you like and that you would put in your own house. So go take a look at the internet, Google end tables or cool end table designs, find 2 pictures, insert them in your answers. Number 2, list 3 different rooms that you're going to put an end table in your house. So after you're done looking at those designs and kind of where they're at and what they're used for, type in 3 different rooms that you would place an end table in. Number 3, list 3 other pieces of furniture in your house that you're going to place an end table next to. So what is going to be next to that end table? And think about like why the end table is placed next to those different pieces of furniture, and list 3 different pieces of furniture there. Next one is very important. Number 4, list 10 different items you may place on an end table. This could be things that you could actually use that you're using on a daily basis that you might be placing there, things that you use periodically, maybe some decorative pieces as well, but list 10 different items that you place or use that end table for right here. And then now that you've identified those different items on the end table, come up with 5 different customizations that you would make to that original one to make it more functional and meet your needs. So based off of the things that you're putting on that end table and using it for, what changes can you make to this existing design that you already made to make it better and more useful for you in your daily life? Now let's talk about some of the current things that are already occurring with this end table. Now it's a very unique design, and I think you noticed that right away when we started with the front view. But some of you may be asking, well, what's this for? Why didn't we just do like a kind of upside down U shape just to create the table? Well, maybe over here, one of those items that you're putting on an end table is a magazine. So maybe, or some books. So maybe you're placing your magazines in this slot. This end table also has this flat surface here for you to place your items. It also has a nice little easy handle to pick up and move, and not, make it easier to move around in your house or your space. The other thing I also see this for is because of the overall height, I'd imagine if this was made out of a strong material like bamboo, that this could also function as a chair because of the height of it. So it's almost at sitting height, so someone could actually use this also as a chair instead of just an end table. So it has multiple functionality and different uses. And I think that based off of what you come up with in your brainstorming here, it'll help you determine the changes that you would make or things that you would add, things that you would do differently based off of what you're using that table for. And then don't forget to highlight your 3 changes. So you got to list 5 total, but then pick 3 that you're going to go ahead and do to this design. So then once you're done with that, or once you're picked your 3, you're going to come back in here into Fusion, and the first thing I want you to do is make a change, add maybe one of your new additions or whatever you're going to do differently, and then click the Save button, but this time for the version name, call it Custom Wooden Table. And then from there on, that, those are your customizations. The final thing that you'll have to do after you're done with your 3 customizations, because you actually have to go and do that in Fusion now, is create a drawing. Now, what do you got to do for that drawing? It's going to use an ASME default B-size template. So to do that, you're going to drop this down, go to Drawing, from Design. You're going to use ASME, and then I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be on a B-size template. So you want to make sure that this is set up to a B-size 17 by 11. Go ahead and click OK. And then let's look what you need. You're going to need a front, top, right side, and isometric at a scale of your choice. So use a good scale to kind of fill the page and not have a lot of extra real estate or white blank space on your piece of paper. Remember, the front, top, and right side are all going to be the same scale, but you could do a little bit bigger or smaller isometric view. Remember, the isometric should be shaded. Then you don't have to do all the dimensions for this. I simply just want the overall height, width, depth, and material thickness dimensions. So you only need 4 dimensions, and you can pick, which view you want that to go on. So again, I'm going to have a front, say OK, I'm going to project, I'm going to do a top, I'm going to do a right side, and I'm going to do an isometric. Right click, say OK. The isometric should be shaded. And again, this drawing is going to be for your customization one. This is just my original one, so this isn't finished. I haven't made any changes. I'm going to go into the original parent front view, and I'm going to change the scale. Right now it's at 1:16. I'm going to try 1:8. Let's see what that whoops, that's way too, that is not good. Come on. Oh, that's really big. Let's try a half. Oh, that's a ½ inch, goes a foot. Let's try a 1:2 scale, maybe. 1:2, which is, whoops, 1:2. Is that still? Yeah, that's still going to be huge. Let's try a 1:10. No, where are you? All right, so that's not bad. I'm getting better. So again, you want to play around with this to go ahead and find a good scale that you like for your views. And just make sure it fills the page. Like, this is way too small. I want it to take up pretty much majority of all of this space. And yeah, so fill that in, add in your dimensions, fill in the title block. So remember, just double click down here. For drawing number, you could just put 1, double click on this, click here. You could do drawing number 1. I think that's about it that you really have to change. It did everything else for you. So just add in the drawing number. We also need to insert our picture of our school logo. So remember, you can do an insert, and you can go find the JPEG of our school logo that you should have saved anyways from our previous drawings. So if you don't have a JPEG of our school logo, just go Google it and save it. And then you can go to insert, bring it in. I'm going to place that in. I believe we had to change our scale to make it a little bit smaller. I think I went 0.4 or 0.6. 0.4 looks good for me. That might be a little bit different. And I think we just moved that to kind of center it. Excuse me. Come on. So I'm going to move that. Point. Scoot that over a little bit. That looks good. Say OK. I'm missing my dimensions. So remember, you need those 4 dimensions: overall height, width, depth, and material thickness. And what else do we got for you to do? Fill in the title block. Alright, I'm on number 5 here. Wherever you have space on the drawing, drag out a text box and type a short paragraph indicating the 3 changes you made to the design. So go ahead, use your text box tool right here. Probably going to have some space here, so drag out a text box and type out, the 3 changes that I made to my end table were this, this, and this, and they are used for, these items, or the reason why I did those 3 is because of this. So do a short paragraph down here explaining the 3 changes that you made and why. And then finally, screen clip in the drawing at the end of this page to earn full points. So go into your Fusion, screen clip the entire page, get this centered, screen clip this into your binder to get your full points. And that is your Wood Table Design Challenge project.